on this episode of Law Weekly, a conversation on the proceedings of the Election Petition Tribunal and the huge negative impact the admission by Senator Ahmed Mohamed Bulkachuwa has on the integrity of the judiciary. Also showing on the program, the Lagos branch of the Nigerian Bar Association kickstarts activities to mark its annual Law Week, plus a recap of some of the top trending legal stories in the news. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Shola Shoyeli. As usual, we turn our attention to the hearing of the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal sitting in Abuja. In this interview, my colleague Nyota Egbe sits with the former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Joseph Daudu, to get his views on the proceedings from there and much more.
Thank you so much for speaking with us, Mr. Daudu. The election petition tribunals have kicked in and the elections are over. You have participated in some of the most high-profile election petition cases before. As one who has first-hand knowledge of what goes on there and what has been, what would you say had been your observations?
In terms of the election or in terms of...
In terms of the elections and the petition procedures.
Yeah, you see, we are dealing with Nigeria. And in Nigeria, politicians want to win at all costs. And therefore, at all times, they try to employ, never mind what they tell you, tactics that would guarantee them victory. And some of these tactics go from the normal to the abnormal. The normal including the usual ways of campaigning and winning elections, and the abnormal ones being the use of thuggery, employing people to try to manipulate the elections. Now, so when you have such a situation and certain changes have not been introduced into our system, then you find that the politicians are emboldened to continue to adopt those tactics. Now, I can tell you that from 1999 to date, no one has been punished for any electoral offense, at least to my knowledge. And then you find that the elections have come and people have been killed, injured, maimed, thugs have been on the loose, the ballot boxes have been snatched, but the police are not authorized to prosecute. Only INEC is authorized to prosecute. And we find that a complete aberration. I think that a situation where there is a commission, and the commission is empowered to work with all law enforcement agencies, and people who commit offenses are prosecuted, then you will find that there will be sanity. And the only reason why politicians are reluctant to have these miscreants punished is because they are in their employment, and you don't have someone you have instructed to go and do this, even with body language, to go and commit this, lift ballot box, fight your opponent, and at the end of the day somebody dies and you start prosecuting him. The first thing he will say is who sent him, and that implicates the big man himself, whoever is the big man there. So unless and until the rule of law prevails, we punish people for offenses that they have committed, they will just be emboldened in committing future offenses, because they know that whoever wins will have their back.
So, but in these particular elections, you know that there were a lot of emotions. I mean, a lot of people were somewhat like involved emotionally in these elections, and they have a lot of expectations. There are also those who are already saying that there's not likely to be any justice at the tribunal. Do you see that playing out?
Now, you see, the problem with electoral justice is that it's like a beautiful woman. It's in the eyes of the beholder. So it's what you think is going to be justice that the group or whoever is involved projects as justice. Now, let me just put, now in terms of the quality of the election, I do not think that this election was worse than all the previous elections. I think it was even a better conducted election because of the structures that had been put in place. And I know this because I've been a participant from the review point of elections from 1999, even before then till date.
But the concern is, would they get that justice, or what they consider? Do you think the tribunal will be fair? I mean, the panel started out by saying there will be no technicalities in it. It will be based on evidence provided that we will decide these cases. Do you think that will be the...
Now, the answer is very simple. If they produce the evidence that is required with the appropriate quality, Nigerian courts or this presidential election court will give justice to whoever proves this case. If the case is not proved, and election petitions are tricky, on paper it may look fantastic. The reality, when you bombard the courts with documents and everything, there's really little time to explore the weaknesses in it. So it's usually based on evidence, and the election petitions are quite tricky.
All right, as a senior legal practitioner, let's leave the tribunal a bit and step back and look at things from the outside. So a few days ago, we heard a former senator talk about how his wife, then president of the Court of Appeal, how he influenced his wife to help his friends. I mean, Senator Bulkachuwa at the valedictory service. And there have been all manner of reactions to that statement he made. So, first of all, what's your reaction? And how do you think that statement is going to impact the reputation of his wife and indeed the cases that she has had to sit on?
Yes, you see, I was very disappointed at the senator. And if you know how things work in Nigeria, and I'm very blunt with you, it is difficult to have someone in a judicial arena and the person is in a position, let's take you for example, and myself. It is very difficult for your friend not to come and ask you for a favor. It is for you to decline and say, I don't do that, or for your reputation to speak for you. Talk less of husband and wife. There is always going to be a presumption that the husband at the time whispered something to the wife. But I can tell you that I have known Justice Bulkachuwa for over 40 years. She does not give favors, and you cannot compel her to go against her will. I am confident, knowing her, that it's for you to say, do this favor for me, and it's for her not to do it. But where I find the whole episode very unfair and unfortunate is that nobody has given her the basic benefit of doubt. In law, there is a principle called audi alteram partem. Hear the other side. Everybody has just rushed to judgment and said, oh, she must have been helping. Even the man himself did not for once say which particular matter she influenced. I also know that while she was president of the Court of Appeal for 5 or 6 years, she sat on very few cases. And that is not to say that if you had a president that was not straightforward, could not, but our judges cannot just be manipulated that way. If you put me in charge of a panel, you can't tell me what to decide. I will decide the way I want to decide. If a judge chooses to corrupt, he chooses to be corrupt on his own steam, not because somebody is telling you to be corrupt. They are what they call primus inter pares. The president and the justices are at the same level. The only difference between the president and the other justices is that one is the administrative head, but they are all justices of the Court of Appeal. And none has the power. The president has no power to dismiss, to suspend, or to query, or to discipline the other judges. That is left to the NJC. So where the public get this thing at the back of their mind, that the president or the head of the court can call a judge and he'll tell him to look, my lord, I could also be in your seat. So, from two angles, viewing it from my knowledge of Justice Bulkachuwa, the husband has done her a very big disservice, especially in this political era, of making that kind of sweeping allegation.
Okay, but having been done, I mean, he has put out this statement and there have been reactions. What should the judiciary, what should the NJC, for instance, be doing? Because this woman is known to be one of the ones up there most respected amongst the justices.
Well, it's unfortunate that she has a husband that we can't blame her choice of marriage. Matters of the heart is different from matters of the head. But the NJC clearly has no jurisdiction over retired judges. But in the interest of transparency, there's no harm. I'm sure if you check her cases that she presided over, there won't be more than 8 or 10 while she was the president of the Court of Appeal, because the administrative functions of the president of the Court of Appeal is harrowing. So you can barely have an opportunity to do more than 2-3 cases in a year. And I know that she avoided political cases, election cases, as a rule. Just be running from this kind of thing. And so if she herself, because she could take up the file and say, let me do it. If she herself avoided it because of integrity, because she wanted to be in the clear, then I don't think she will go ahead to push people to go and do things.
I do know that there was a bit of a reaction when she was appointed the president of the Court of Appeal because of her association with a politician as per her husband and all. So, but let's leave that. You've said a lot of things, and probably people will expect that her colleagues in the NJC might speak up and say, hey, this person is not like this. But you now, you're a senior lawyer and you've been there, you've seen what's happening in the tribunals before. You're not in there now, you're looking from the outside. If you had a word of advice for the judiciary, especially with the emergence of the new administration, what would you say?
What I tell the judiciary is that the whole world is watching you. And even if the whole world is not watching you, you have a conscience. And therefore, people should, as much as possible, because people have invested a lot into contesting elections, into challenging the results of elections, that if there is sufficient evidence to obtain a result, please obtain that result. You shouldn't care whose ox is God. So I believe with the caliber of the people that still man the bench, that if quite a good percentage, and I'll put it at about 85 to 90%, will deliver the goods. And I think for our society, that is not a bad reckoning or percentage.
One very last question. The NBA had put out a word as regards the Bulkachuwa statement. What would you say? Should that word be? Asking that the man be arrested and prosecuted.
Well, you see, because it's a spousal issue, I'll be hesitant to put asunder. But if it was someone else who did it, I think that that person has just admitted on his own part to committing an offense. And if the police were to be interested, or any other law enforcement agency, they will be on the right track to ask him to provide details and particulars of how he went about it, and for the purposes of transparency. it should not be covered up. But I can vouch for the judge herself. Good. The NBA is quite right. I commend the president for his position. He's naturally upset. The bar is upset. The judges are upset. They know their colleague. She can't hurt a fly. So she will be the last. She doesn't like being disturbed by those such things. Be the last person to go and call a number of judges together and say give judgments. She's aristocratic in her bearing, so she's not given to asking for favors. At least in my 40 years knowledge of her, of knowing her. I've known her since she was a chief magistrate in 1982. So that's about 41 years. So if you've known somebody, I can come out on national TV and vouch that I have not seen any change. So the fault is simply with the politician husband.
Welcome back. All is now set for the much anticipated Law Week of the Nigerian Bar Association Lagos branch with the theme Facing the Future, Law in a Globalized Economy. This traditional event kicked off with a press conference where the planning committee unveiled the lineup of activities for the week.
Gathered here are some executive members of Lagos branch, members of the planning committee of the conference, members of the media. Chairman of the branch, Ikechukwu speaks about the general idea behind the conference and why it is important.
Our Law Week is the intellectual festival for our branch members. The MBA Lagos branch has over 14,000 members. It's the biggest branch of the MBA, and we have a robust members who are quite interested about having their intellectual capacity always rejuvenated so that they can impact in the legal sphere. As you may be aware, the work tool of every lawyer is the knowledge the lawyer has. So the business, what we sell every day, our inventory is the knowledge we have. So the Law Week is always a period for us to come together to refill that our toolbox, sharpen it once again, and get ready for the market.
Chairman of the Planning Committee, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Wale Adeshoko, speaks to the specifics of what participants can look forward to at the conference.
The theme for this year's Law Week is Facing the Future, Law in a Globalized Economy. And we have an array of intellectuals, academicians, judges, senior lawyers, captains of industries that are going to be engaging number of topics. We are going to be having judges of the Superior Court, Honorable Justice Faji of the Federal High Court, Honorable Justice Ipaye of the Lagos High Court. We are going to be having Senior Advocate Rotimi Seriki, and then we are going to break into about 9 sessions, 4 sessions per day. So protecting your intellectual property, gaining more knowledge, expanding your knowledge in information and technology are very, very key for the practice of law, and also relevant even for advancement of the economy. Virtually all the events will be happening at the Nigerian Law School.
The Vice Chairman of the committee also weighing on other key benefits to members, participants, and even the guests.
What we plan to do is for us to network. We need to know each other more at the bar. You know, some of us are getting old. The younger ones need to get closer to us. There's a mentoring, social, networking time where we have guest artists. It's a secret. We don't want everyone to know who that will be. So if you come, you will know more about the guest speaker. We're going to dance. It's a formal event. We're going to be dressed up. There's so many. We have a lot of gifts that we're giving out, and we think they're all secrets. There's raffle draw. There's so many activities, and the good thing is that we're going back to our alma mater, law school, so that people can see what law school is and the fact that we need to improve law school. And the reason why we decided to use law school is we need all lawyers to realize that this is the school that taught us years ago, and they're in need of money, they need of funding. So we're going back to see how we can also help.
I hope many young lawyers registered to attend physically, because I would say it's more of the day, that particular event, than the elders, because the Casino Royale theme, James Bond 007, costumes, the fun, the camaraderie and everything. So for subsequent years, for next year, we hope that, I believe we're sold out on this, but there's still space for virtual attendance. You can still register virtually, but for subsequent years, I hope that more people will join physically, and there would always be room to improve on what we've done now. So the hope is that there would always be an improvement every year, and like the two chairmen said, that this is going to be an improvement on what has happened in the past. So we encourage people to be expectant and watch out for the space.
As we have all heard, it's quite extensive. It's filled with a lot of expert knowledge and information that will be delivered, and so we can't thank the committee enough for what they have put together, for the time, their resources, their financials, everything they have brought into play, their experience. The chairman and committee members, we're very thankful. We can't thank you enough, like I always say.
The week-long activity, which will run till Friday, June 23rd, is a hybrid conference which allows virtual and in-person attendance. The planning committee is confident that it will be a rewarding and enjoyable law week.
And just before we go, let's quickly do a recap of some of the top trending stories.
We begin with the report that the Labour Party and its presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, has tendered 18,088 blurred polling unit result sheets, among other documents, in continuation of the prosecution of their case before the Presidential Election Petition Court in Abuja. Counsel to the petitioners, Onyechi Ikpeazu, tendered the documents through the petitioner's fourth witness, Eric Ofuedu, who is a professor of mathematics at the Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka. The petitioners also tendered a report of the witness analysis of some election materials, a copy of a letter written to him by the LP dated February the 20th, 2023, engaging Professor Ofuedu to help the party analyze data in respect of the February 25th presidential election, and the subpoena issued on him to attend court and produce the said documents. Counsel to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Abubakar Mahmood, Wale Olanikwekun, representing President Bola Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima, and Lateef Fagbemi for the All Progressives Congress, APC, objected to the tendering of majority of the documents with a promise to adduce reasons for their objection at the final stage of their written addresses. Hearing has formally commenced in the petition filed by the governorship candidate of the Labour Party in the March 18 election, Gbadebo Rhodesviver, challenging the return of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Although the petitioner was absent, his lead counsel, Senior Advocate of Nigeria Olumide Ayeni, began calling witnesses and tendering documents in proof of his client's petition. The petitioner has already indicated that he has over 20,000 documents to tender. Away from election petitions, the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has directed that criminal summons be issued on Senator Ifeanyi Ubah and his company Capital Oil and Gas Limited. Justice Nicholas Owebo gave this directive in the criminal prosecution of the senator by the federal government of Nigeria on an 8-count charge bordering on his alleged indebtedness to Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON, sometime in 2019. The court also stated that at the court adjourned date, if Senator Ubah fails to appear in court, a warrant will be issued for his arrest. The matter was adjourned to October the 18th for the arraignment of Senator Ubah. And we round up with a report that the Nigeria Bar Association (NBA) has called on the Inspector General of Police and the Chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission (ICPC) to immediately invite Senator Ahmad Mohammed Bulkachuwa for interrogation and proceed to prosecute him accordingly. In a statement released by the president of the association, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Yakubu Mekiao, the NBA noted that the viral video clip of the comments made by the senator were clearly admissions that he did attempt to and/or actually perverted the course of justice and interfered with due administration of justice, which makes him liable to be investigated and prosecuted even on his admission. The NBA also said, quote, that this came with a huge negative impact on the integrity and the independence of the judiciary can only be an understatement. The NJC is said to have condemned the actions of the senator in the strongest terms as an affront on the integrity and independence of the judiciary.
And that's the program for today. If you missed any part of it, you can find it in past episodes on our YouTube channel. Do also give us feedback via any of our social media platforms. I'm Shola Shayeli. Thank you for watching and see you next week.